Welcome. In this lesson, we're going to begin to talk about circles. Circles is found in exercise 4D of your textbook. So once we've gone through the notes, you're going to go through exercise 4D for some practice of this skill. Let's read through these notes here. Circles can be graphed using an equation in the form x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared, where r is the radius of the circle. The base graph for a circle is x squared plus y squared is equal to 1. Note the following properties about this base graph is that the origin or center of the circle is at 0, 0, and the radius of the circle is 1. Let's see what that means. So if we come and we look at our graph here, see we've graphed x squared plus y squared is equal to 1. The center is 0, 0, and the radius is 1, meaning the distance from the edge of the circle to the center is 1. And there it is right there. So there is our base rule for a circle. It gives us information about the center and the radius. Let's now move on and talk about the center radius form of a circle. Here it is right here. The r tells us about the radius. So the r value tells us about the radius. The h value tells us about the horizontal translation. The k value tells us about the vertical translation. And then finally, the coordinates hk, so the h here and the k here, that tells us the origin of the circle. Now, the thing that we really need to be careful of is when we're figuring out the center or the horizontal and vertical translations, the sign in front of our h and k values is going to be very important. So let's come here and answer this question. It says state the center and radius of this circle here. So it's in our center radius form. How are we going to approach this question? Let's write it down here. So we're figuring out what the center is going to be. Now here's the tricky part. You have to swap the sign in front of the h and k values. You have to swap the sign in front of your h and k values. So that means if I've got a -2, the center is going to be 2. And if I've got +4, it's going to be -4. You have to swap them around. If you don't swap them around, you'll get it wrong. So just make sure you swap the sign in front of it. And that's all you need to remember about it. Just swap that sign. The next thing that we need to talk about is what the radius is going to be. As you can see, the radius is given here. But remember, this is r squared. So it's the radius squared. So that means if I want to figure out what the radius is, I can't just write 16. It's the square root of 16, which is 4. That means we could write this out in a different way. We could just write this like this. Y plus 4 is equal to 4 squared. And now it looks exactly like this up here because you've got this r squared valued. Well, that's just 4 squared is 16. The radius is 4. No big surprises there. So this has a center of 2, -4, and a radius of 4. Let's move on to this next one over here, which says write down the equation of a circle with the center at 4, -1, and a radius of 2. So this is where we need to be careful about the sign in front of our h and k values. If I have an x value, the center with an x value of +4, that means I need to write -4 here. Then I square it plus y. Now, if I have a y value with a center of -1, that means I need to write a +1 here. And then finally, I have a radius of 2, so I'm going to go 2 squared. So here, you take the radius and you square it. That means my final answer is going to be x minus 4 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to 4. And just like that, I've answered this question. So it's just really important when you're looking at this center here that you're making the appropriate changes to the signs. So I had to write -4 here because the center is +4, and I had to write +1 here because the center is -1, and then square that radius to get it there. So just be careful with that. As you're going through this exercise, you'll get more and more practice at it and become comfortable with it. So there's the center, there's radius, all good. Okay, let's now keep on moving here. Let's now talk about transformations that occur, and we're really just going over the same material again, but hopefully you just feel a bit better as we move through it. It says, given that r indicates the radius of the circle, it acts as the dilation. And remember, dilation is just like how much it's being stretched. So you can think of the dilation factor as the stretching factor. All translations occur around the origin of the circle. So let's now consider some examples of this. So consider the graph x squared plus y squared is equal to 4. Well, for x squared plus y squared is equal to 4, the origin is 0, 0. The radius is given by r squared is equal to 4, therefore the radius is equal to 2. So it's all about square rooting whatever the value here is to get what the radius is. When we come and look at our graph here, you can see that our base circle, so x squared plus y squared is equal to 1, this has a radius of 1, but our red, which is x squared plus y squared is equal to 2 squared, or 4, that has a radius of 2. And it's like we've stretched this circle out, or to say it more mathematically, we've dilated it. So that radius, that r value, is acting as that dilation factor. The next graph that we're going to consider here is x minus 2 squared plus y plus 1 squared is equal to 1. Y plus 1 squared is equal to 1. Again, we just need to be careful in how we read the center. Remember, you need to swap the sign in front of it. So here, this means my center is going to have an x value of positive 2, and this means it's going to have a y value with a center of negative 1. So just swap those signs around. If it's a negative here, it becomes a positive. If it's a positive, it becomes a negative. Just swap them around, you'll be fine. So now we can come and look at what this looks like. So here is my original graph. So x squared plus y squared is equal to 1. And as you can see, if I zoom in here, it has a center at 0, 0. Oh, if this wants to work with me. But then once I've come over here and I've applied my transformation to it, as you can see, the origin is now at 2, negative 1. So it's going to be 2, negative 1, just like that, 2, negative 1. And that's because we've swapped the signs around. So negative 2 became positive 2, positive 1 became negative 1. And the radius is just r is equal to 1 in this case. We haven't changed that radius. All right, there you go. Hopefully this has made some sense. In the next part of this lesson, we'll do some sketching and you'll gain a better understanding of what everything here means. All right, I'll see you in that next part.